All right, I think we're recording. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for joining. We are going to mastermind about buyer presentations this morning. Oliver, in your opinion, why is it so important for us to master the buyer's presentation now, like since July?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jess, really appreciate this time. Enjoy our conversations. I try to mastermind with Jess about once a week to kind of come up with these topics to keep me current and really help our team. I got my business partner, Shannon Maverly, here with me as well. She is my business partner and our director of operations. She runs the day-to-day of our ship. But talking to Jess last week about buyer presentations and these new commission laws, and something that I've really enjoyed, the change in the commission laws. So we've noticed in our area, just kind of studying across the country too, that buyers agents are actually making more money today than they're making about 6 months ago, right? Washington is a really great study because they changed the laws a little bit earlier, and they went from about a 2.3% commission up to a 2.7% commission, what buyers agents are seeing. And I believe that is because we now as buyer agents get to show our value to people, and we get to articulate how we're going to help them and why we are valuable, where in the past we were just dependent on whatever that listing agent pre-negotiated for us, sometimes a year earlier, right? I mean, depending on when that listing presentation was. And we never got a chance to really show our value and say, here's what we're worth, right? So personally, I've been signing stuff anywhere from 3 to 4% on buy side. Shannon is a pretty solid 3% commission on her buy side. There's some strategy around my 4s. So my 4s, I'm typically willing to go down to 3 or maybe even 2.5. I've been able to put in offers for my clients with my buyer broker agreement saying that they owe me 4% on that sell side. And I call that agent, say, hey, I put my offer in and I know I'm at 4%. I've done a lot of work with this buyer. But honestly, they really want this home. If you need to negotiate, feel free to knock me back down to 3 or 2.5%. And I think we can make that work. So I've actually been able to get my buyers the home they want at the price they want to spend and knock my commission down that I was willing to take 3 to begin with, right? So, and that's my strategy going into my clients and talk to them, hey, we're going to put this here at 4% so they can negotiate me down and we can keep you at the price that you want to buy.
Clever. What do you do with, this is probably jumping the gun, but I feel like the first thing a buyer is going to tell you during your appointment is it's negotiable. So why am I going to pay you 4%? Why can't I pay you 1% or 2%? I feel like I can find a cheaper agent.
Absolutely, you can. And I'll even recommend a couple to you. However, right, I would really like to kind of spend some time to go over my value proposition with you and show what it is I offer. We don't talk about commission until the very end of our value proposition anyways. We do our presentation. We show them what we have to offer. We let them know what we're going to do for them. We have our promise to you at the end of our presentation, which is very much a buyer broker agreement. Like, look, but I promise to do these things for you. Can you in turn promise to do these for me? And by the time we show people our value, we haven't gotten any pushback. And then in addition to that too, we speak about how it's negotiable in our buyer presentation and let them know that, hey, we're 100% at getting the seller to pay for these for you, right? So although this is what we're asking for, there's not been a time that I have not been able to have it covered by my sellers, right? And in addition to it, it's only been around for 6 months. Absolutely it has. However, we have a proven track record of getting concessions for our buyers for other things, right? Like repairs and otherwise, right? So we've been negotiating concessions forever.
Yeah. And I would say too, it's been brought up definitely in listing appointments, right? Right away, commissions is a question mark. With buyers, I've had it a few times recently because of everything. I don't necessarily push back, and I'm like, that's a good question. We're actually going to go over that. But first, I'm going to find out about you and your goals. Like the buyer consultation process for me is asking questions. We have like a buyer information sheet. It's almost like that we use. And of course, I use LP Mama is my biggest script to get that appointment. Because the other thing is consultations are up right now. And we haven't had to necessarily do them, especially if you came from like the 2021, 2020 market. You just had to be the fastest agent and you didn't have that relationship. I have not, in all my years of real estate, stopped my consultation process because it's an experience for them and I want them to know how they're taken care of. So if it does get brought up first, that's an objection, right? So work through it and be like, that's a great question. There's a lot of that talk and information and the media is talking about it. We're going to go over that later, but first I'm going to find about you and your goals and how we can make homeownership achievable for you.
Maybe we start there. We change the nomenclature of buyer presentation to buyer consult, because it's not really you presenting at them. It's you having a conversation with them about what they need, what they want.
Yeah, and less pushy too. Like I've seen, and we've probably experienced agents that are pushy, right? We've probably come across like YouTube channels of people doing scripts and feel like that's too pushy. Once you become a consultation process, just think of like attorneys, right? If you've ever had to, you know, and we probably all have had to go to an attorney, you get that free consultation at first. It's rather pleasant. They listen to you. They ask a bunch of questions. They kind of fill in what they'll do. So you'll go to the next step and use them as your attorney. It's the same idea.
Makes sense. For the rest of you on the call, what has your experience with buyer appointments been lately? Easier, harder? Were you not even doing them before?
I've been doing buyer consultations since I started. Kindred Trait has trained us to do them. We call them custom home buying plans.
Oh, I like
it
that.
doesn't sound, so it doesn't sound so like consultation, this and that. It's like like, you know, we figure out what you're looking for in a home, and it really customize it towards them, the buyer.
Awesome. And how have the conversations changed at all in the last 6 months, or have you been able
Not
to?
too much, to be honest with you. The ones that I've had have kind of like, since I've been trained to do this the whole time, it's just kind of what I've done.
Mm-hmm.
So everything I think it seems to say the same to me. Most people haven't really asked. Most buyers, if I ask do you know about the settlement? They're like, no.
Okay, that was going to be my follow-up question.
So I think maybe being in San Diego and California is a little bit different, because I feel like not much had changed here.
So buyers
Really
aren't
nothing,
more
yeah.
educated? They're not more educated about what's going on in the landscape?
Not until I educate them.
You guys do a loyalty. You guys do like a loyalty agreement then? Before
I like calling it a loyalty agreement, or what did you call it? A promise loyalty agreement.
Our promise
I like
to
that
our,
a lot.
we call it a loyalty agreement. We promise, right? So it literally is we have them sign it and everything, right? Like, hey, this is our promise to you. So once they sign that, then it's very easy to bring out that BRBC and like, hey, you know what we already talked about? We already promised to do for each other. This is just one we have to have on for our file that, you know, DRE is now requiring us to have, right? So it's a very easy transition into it, right? Because the promissory one is very clean, very like, hey, if you go to open a house, promise to mention my name, right? If you go to a new build, like call me first and let me make that appointment or go with you, because right, there's these opportunities here in these new builds. So really breaking that down for them. But Josh, you're not wrong. I mean, in my opinion, literally nothing has changed in California.
It's actually made it a little bit easier to get people to actually sign it, because I'm like, in order for me to show you a home, I have to have this signed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's that way it's been easier. But like I said, we've been trained really well, and like I've been Michelle's our sales director, and she you know that we've been doing this for a very long time, getting BBAs signed. So
that's all. If you're doing that anyways, like you're ahead of the game, right? I mean, we knew that was coming, and people, it was funny, still weren't doing it, and then all of a sudden it came, and we've experienced it here, and I'm sure you have as well down there, Josh. Like we have seen a lot of the older generation of realtors just say, this is just too much work. I'm not gonna do this anymore, right? The people who are ready to retire anyways, like it's like it's a document you should have been doing. Like we've had this document in California for 10, 15 years, you know?
Yeah.
Is it too much work to get a piece of paper signed versus showing up to
Right. And also kind of like
the offer?
Yeah, exactly. And then also kind of what I bring, like, you know, there have been people that, you know, say that have had pushback a little bit. And I'm like, well, okay, when you got hired at your job, did you fill out paperwork? And they're kind of like, well, yeah. And I'm like, well, this is you hiring me. So that's kind of
I like that.
I love that. I've always leaned into like, have you bought a new mattress before? Like, did you sign a contract for a mattress? Did you sign on and on, right? I mean, like, look at the things we sign contracts for with no questions asked.
Yeah.
But now to make
Way
the
less
biggest
money.
investment in your life, like you don't want someone that's committed to work with you.
Right. Exactly.
Jess, we have our presentation up if we want to kind of go over it a little bit. Love to answer the questions too, but we're happy to kind of share our presentation as well with people and they can take from it. We have two versions of our presentation. So this is actually one that we made as a training guide for our agents, right? So this we have without the notes. This is the one that actually has notes and scripts and everything kind of built into it, which is a really cool training guide for our agents.
Yeah, and I'll email it to you guys after, right? I can share this one, Oliver?
I'll get you a copy.
Cool. And then you guys can personalize it, tweak it, and use it however you will, if there's useful stuff for Kindred in there. Let's do it.
Yeah, so that's page 1, right? So this is just directions on how to use this actual document. But page 1, and Shannon already talked about that. Like the first thing we want to do is it's all about you. Like I might get trapped here for an hour, right? You might get trapped here for a while, right? This is something that I may be doing while we're touring that house, and if we're there, right, and at a house, sometimes we do these buyer consultations, on the fly because we got to meet right now. Preferably, we're sitting at a Starbucks, sitting at our office, sitting somewhere, right? But we're gonna sit down and be like, this is all about you. This is one of the biggest investments you're ever going to make in your life. This is your first home. This is whatever it is. Like, I just want to learn more about what it is you're looking for. Tell me about your needs. Tell me about your dreams. Like, what does it mean to buy a house in this neighborhood, in this school zone? And then you dive into their questions, and then what is their timeline, right? You can be here for quite some time, but I guarantee if you spend time here and you ask a lot of questions, they'll sign that buyer broker agreement at the end of the presentation with just this one page, right? Because you are the only person that actually sat down, talked to them, asked about their dreams, asked about their what they want to accomplish and everything. So this is one of my favorite pages.
And you have a worksheet, Shannon, I think you showed it, that you're filling out while you're having that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, so if there's anything too, like this is, based on the consultation and the presentation to go over your value, take notes. That's what's going to make it less pushy and more consulting. And it's okay to do it. Like we have information sheets that help, obviously, putting that information in the database and important details to know about them. And without a doubt, there's probably no less than 50 questions I ask with every buyer.
Every buyer.
And it's like, and it's within this page and things like that. So just making sure you're digging deeper into them and their goals, it'll help, right, when it gets time to go over that BRBC and understanding your value and their values as well. Because once you align, it'll make magic happen. And that's where the referrals and the business grows from.
Yep. Yeah.
One
Ask me the question.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Ask me the question. I was just going to kind of jump in on that, right? I mean, we like to leave this page and leave this presentation with the client feeling like they didn't learn, ask anything about you, like so much, like, oh my gosh, like they cared so much and they asked so much about me. Like, man, I didn't ask a lot about them, right? Because that almost kind of guarantees that follow-up, right? And that almost like, man, I'm so glad you called back. Like, I feel like I really dominated that conversation. Like I talked about me the whole time. It's a great feeling because they now want to reciprocate that to you in that next conversation,
Got it. One operational question. What details from this conversation are you putting in your CRM?
Yeah. So one, are they leasing? But got to make sure that they're in the CRM, right? So name, phone number, email, where they currently live. Handwritten notes are good. A lot of us do that. And then desired areas. So our CRM, we can set up like a MLS search. And we don't have to do it through MLS. We do it through there. So their desired areas, their price point, schools, all of that you could do. And you need to know to actually set them up on the right search. Renting, obviously, they're not renting. They might need to sell what they're doing. So you need to dig into that, right? You need to sell before you do that. More motivational things too. What's their timeline, right? So your needs, your dreams, your questions, your timeline is the most important part. And that's where I dig into it because sometimes we have these buyer consultations. I've had them 2 years ahead of the game.
Yep.
Right.
Wow.
And I position people to know, like, you get a lead in your CRM, right? Or you meet someone at an open house and they're just looking, they're not making a move in a couple of years. That's, that's the perfect time for us to meet because it does take time. Do you got 30, 45 minutes? I'd love to find out more about your goals and like set that appointment, right? And then mortgage, I kind of mentioned that. So this is like LP mama stuff is what you need in your CRM. And because we kind of scroll out, I feel like as much details about them as a person. Did they mention dogs? Did they have a spouse? If they have a spouse and the spouse isn't there, we've got a second meeting we need to work on, right? We need 2 decision makers.
Yeah.
Their job. What do they do? Dig into that. Important things to put in there because, I know when we close, we do cookies are for closing. That's what we call it, like on our P&L. But we give them like, cookies are for closing. Congratulations on your new home. And sending them to their place of work is super important. If you remember things like dogs' names, like you'll be like, this is a perfect yard for Pippi or whatever. You know what I mean? So
put everything in your CRM,
yeah.
honestly, right, Jess? Because I want to call you in 3 months and be like, hey, Jessica, like, man, you got that home. I know that park was so important for you to have your kids play there. Like, how has it been? Have you guys been going to that park a lot, right? I mean, you got to put everything in there. And then timeline is incredibly important too. Like, we have a lot of buyers in California and elsewhere that their timeline was the election, right? So like being able to follow up, like, hey, all right, this happened. What are you thinking? How are you feeling, right? So being able to call back and speak about what you spoke about 3 to even a year ago and remember that, like, the client doesn't know you have a CRM. The client doesn't know that you have notes on them. The client thinks like, oh my gosh, I can't believe Josh remembered that. That is awesome. Like, Josh is amazing, and that's what you get. So literally everything, every note, every little detail that you can remember, like, get in there quickly and do it,
My haircut lady remembered that I went to Santa Clara University, and I was like, how? I don't even remember telling you that. That's crazy. Like, does she have a CRM?
It might be in her head.
It might be in her head, but I mean, even that, like, I mean, stuff like that too, Jess. Like, maybe you wore a Santa Clara University sweatshirt in one day, right? Like, I might jot that in my CRM to kind of ask about that, right? Like, hey, I noticed that, right? So picking up on that, a lot of closing gifts. Shan and I have been together for a couple years before the team too. And Shan be really good on picking up. Like, we were touring a house, and one of my clients was like, "Oh my God, that'd be the perfect place for a swing." Right. And we ended up buying that house. So we got them a swing for their closing gift. Right. And it was something that she had put in the CRM just from a passing conversation. Like, they weren't even talking to us. They were talking to each other,
Ooh, we should check up on them.
So literally
it's been 3 years.
Everything, anything and everything should be in your CRM.
All right. I'll let you go to the next slide. I like
Sorry. But that's why I tell you about this page. Like, you can get trapped here forever. And it's okay if you do, because this page is so important. This is where you build the rapport. Like, that's the number one thing we're doing here. We're building rapport. This is our personalized note, but this is a note that, right, you it's about you and about your team, and then a table of contents, and here's everything we're going to go over, right? So this note for us really talks about our values. Our value is making everybody a homeowner, right? We believe it's something that everybody can achieve. It's something that everybody should achieve. And then we talk about, for us, it's very important, building your net worth. I mean, we have a lot of investor clients as well. So we teach people that, hey, the average is on the next slide too. The average net worth of a renter in the United States is about $10,000. The average net worth of a homeowner jumps to about $350,000 to $400,000, like that overnight, right? Because now you own this asset that only maybe put 3% down to get, right? But you still own this asset that now jumps your net worth drastically. And we can talk about kind of how you can use that money later on as well. So this is just an introduction page about you and about your team. I think something really important to note, and we'll talk about it in a bit, is even if you're a single agent, you have a team. Right? And you present yourself as a team. You have a transaction coordinator, you have escrow, you have a home warranty, you have home inspectors, right? Those people are your team. So don't get stuck in this, like, I'm a single agent and I can't go up against these teams, because you do. You have a team, and they're your trusted team that is there to support you through this transaction.
Good point.
That's what I would talk about here on my team. This is where we talk about your average net worth. So we actually have an app that pairs with this. So I encourage that client, like, hey, I have this cool app. I'd love for you to download. This app is really neat because it's attached to our mortgage company as well. So then it drops people right into our mortgage world and can pair them right with the lender right away. But what it's really showing them is, one, their average net worth, but then two, the cost of waiting is something I've built in here too, right? If you have that client like, well, I have to put 20% down. Well, first of all, no, you don't. And here we go. However, if you do have to put 20% down and you want to wait till you save 20%, homes are appreciating by 4 to 20%, actually, in some places in California, right? So how much money are you putting away? Because, right, if it's going to take you 3 years to save that money, well, you're already down 12% again, right? Because we appreciate by 4% year over year, right? So let's talk around that cost of waiting and what that looks like. So that's built into this app as well. This is our dream of home ownership, and kind of and stop me, guys, if you have questions. We're trying to respect time, so going a little quick.
It looks like this when you're going to fill in number. Do you fill in the numbers in advance or when you're with them?
No, when you're with them.
When you're with them. So this is something Shannon talked, like, taking notes is incredibly powerful, right? Or on this, having them fill it out. So this, the the math is built into our app. It's very easy math to do too, but it's built into our app and it does the math for our agents as they jump through it. But it's really neat to have them fill it out and really self-realize, that dream of home ownership. But then on top of it, right, you're taking these notes down as well because it shows that you're actively listening and engaging in the conversation and you're not just a robot, right?
Mhm.
We're not order takers. We talked about that just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and then on our guidance notes there, it does say like to do it before. So I know a couple of our agents will have it filled out beforehand or have already gone over this like in the consultation, right? Like this is what it means to get them that appointment. Be like, we went over this already, but here it is drafted out for you.
Yep. So first line, right? Average home price about 500,000. Average appreciation in California right now is at that 4% rate. So you're appreciated by $20,000 a year. So you're making $20,000 a year right off the bat. Mortgage amount is going to be at $450 this week and adjust, right? Depending on if they're FHA, VA, and what that mortgage is really going to look like. And then we show them, all right, so now you made $20,000 and now you paid off $5,500 in principal. So now you're about $25,000 a year you've made.
Mhm.
We talk about tax savings very briefly because we're not tax experts. However, we do know there's benefits to writing off interest rates, to writing off some other things. So we talk about your average savings on a $500,000 homes is about $6,000 in taxes. Right. So in that first year of home ownership, you've saved about $32,000 or you've made $32,000. Right.
As
And-
opposed
and
to paying it on rent.
Huh?
As opposed to paying that amount on
As
rent.
opposed to paying on rent. And then you have an active, like you actively made $6,000, right? One can argue that 25,000, okay, well, did I really make that? Well, no, not until we leverage that money for another home or whatever, right? We sell that home. But that $6,000 is something that is truly written off of your taxes, Another place where we can kind of sit for a very long time, just like that first page, is like, what are your goals? Shannon said 50 questions. There's a study came out recently that most people tolerate 18. It's actually been a fun little game we've been playing for the last couple of weeks. Like I've been just asking questions. We went to a restaurant out in Florida a while back, and I tried to trap the waitress as long as I could. She only tolerated 3 questions.
Like a social
Tolerated.
experiment. You gotta
But
pick
right, she
somebody
had somewhere else to be.
that wants to be there.
But right, we've been really testing that and been practicing like answering a question with a question, right? So, hey Jess, what is your goal in purchasing in this neighborhood?
A good school district for my kid.
A good school district. So, what does that mean to you? Like, what are you looking for a good school district?
I don't want them to have fights in their schoolyard.
So, public safety is really important for you, right? Is there anything else important about that school district?
Maybe, I haven't gotten into too much detail about it yet, but that's the main one.
But right, just like answering questions with the questions to the point of like getting every little detail out of them, right?
Yeah.
Like trying to learn more, like, okay, so like there's a park within walking distance, but it doesn't have a dog park. Is that important to you? Right.
Mhm.
So really diving into those goals and what you want to accomplish and asking questions. And you can get the feeling when like, all right, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Right. I picked up very quick with that waitress, right? Like and we moved on, like, all right. So like
You
asking.
gotta read the room.
You got to read the room. I think that's the most important thing we can do as agents. It's fun. We interviewed a new agent yesterday who has a psychology background. Like that's what she went to college for. And I love those people, right? We have another agent who's a marriage and family counselor background, and they're great because that's what they were trained to do is read the room,
Yeah. And I would, just on the school district, because it's a mastermind too, I would have dug in like personally to Jess because we have a big school district here and there are schools that are rated 2 out of 10. So finding out the exact school will help you on your search. So dig into those questions. It's very easy. Like even if you're there and writing down the important things, but you'll soon realize that 50 to 100. I know a buyer's agent. She does hour-long consultations to hour and a half. That's what she time blocks. She asks 100 questions. She does not feel confident moving forward with them unless she asks 100. So she's tallying, through those questions.
Goodness.
She's really good.
She's really good. She did 240 last year.
How she runs her business, she only does the consultation, and then she has buyer's agents that do all the
Showing
showings and
assistants.
they do all that, right? So she literally, all she does is the appointment, the consultation, and then they go to a showing assistant to get out there and do it.
Is that
Very-
not the dream, everybody?
Very cool model. Very cool model. She spends her day at a coffee shop all day.
Amazing.
This dives into securing financing, right? It's something that we got to talk about. And we talk, if you're not paying cash, then we got to kind of secure that financing. We talk about the importance of having a pre-approval letter and getting with that lender and how much stronger your offer looks if we have that. So really diving into what that looks like, go over the minimum requirements. I'm sure we all have mortgage partners, right? So I know I have my mortgage partners app on my phone so I can share it with you. And I can also say, hey, here's what they're going to need. Just right off the bat, two pay stubs, 2 years of W-2s, like these things they're going to ask for. If you just want to take your time and kind of get them together, but just a real quick application, I'm going to introduce you with a quick text message, right? So here's where we talk about financing. This is our mortgage partner. So we dive into our mortgage partner a little bit more.
Or if you've got an in-house lender, or if you are a lender as well, then that's a good opportunity to pitch that.
Yep. So yeah, you pitch yours. So our lending is in-house. We use a lot of partners though, right? I mean, we have a great mortgage company, but we sometimes are not the most competitive. And that's something I tell my clients. They really appreciate it too. I'm like, look, we own a mortgage company. I would love to be able to serve you. But I think you might be able to get a better deal over here, and that's okay, right? Because we're going to be here for the refinance, and we're going to be here to support you. And people love that. Like people love, thank you so much for not just shoving your company down, right? So that's been a really good one. This is a great buyer beware one because it's just kind of fun to talk about and tell those stories that we all have, right?
And these are things that if you've never bought before, you would have no clue, or you probably forgot about it if you did buy before.
Yeah, right. So, hey, you don't want to change jobs during the process, right? I understand that job changes happen. If something's coming up, talk to your lender and make sure they understand. Because quite honestly, if you move from one job of the same title to another job of the same title, people don't mind, right? But if you move to a totally different career, it kind of throws up some red flags, right? Don't go out and buy new vehicles. Don't excessively use credit cards. Don't cancel credit cards. Don't spend money that is coming out of your bank account. I always tell people, if you have money shoved under a pillow somewhere, you're good to go, right? But you don't want to take out large amounts of cash from your accounts, We also talk about the importance of how those deposits and so payments coming in need to come from a bank account. They can't come from this random cash. I have a client right now, we're doing a pretty big deal, and they showed up with cash for their initial deposit because I guess I didn't make it clear, and they had to write 3 letters of where this cash came from. They had to do a notary that they didn't borrow it from anybody. People freaked out when they showed us cash for their deposit. So really diving into the do's and don'ts. And then I always 10 is my favorite. Don't co-sign. And I always tell for anybody forever, never ever, don't do it. Unless it's your child or your spouse. I always push this one pretty hard.
Yeah. A lot of people need a cosigner, but they don't realize that whatever the debt is now impacts that cosigner and their ability to purchase or invest.
We dive into our CRM a little bit here, but this you can do with your Metro List or your right, however you
Radius client app, right?
2 people. Radius has their app, right? So how do we help you find that home, right? Well, we have these great tools. We're going to set you up on the search. We're going to set you up on neighborhood search. I always tell my people, I'm going to set you up and it's going to be incredibly broad. We're going to cover a lot of areas. We're going to cover 1 bathroom to 3 bathrooms, and we're going to have everything in between on there, and it's going to be overwhelming. But at the end of the first week, I'm going to call you, and we're going to go through the ones you like and the ones you dislike, and we're going to narrow that list down together to really kind of dial in. Because I don't want you to miss anything. Because I know these is what you told me you wanted, but what if this house is the perfect house, but it only has 1 bathroom, it only has that, right? So let's kind of look at everything, and then we'll narrow it down after a week. It also tees you up for another phone call right off the bat, right? You're checking in with them. You're checking in when you get the home search set up. You're checking in after that week. So it tees you up for that. In addition to that, right, we are going to look at off-market homes. We're going to look at expires and cancels. We're going to look at for sale by owners. New constructions is an option. We always throw in here, too, that we like to mastermind like this that Jess is putting together with the top agents from across the state. So we have line on stuff that maybe isn't live on market yet because we're doing a mastermind weekly with a group that can kind of share what's coming next,
Good point. Or write letters to the neighborhood if there's a specific street you like.
One of our agents sent out 100 letters yesterday.
I think it's going to be, 100 letters yesterday, 1,000 letters basically in
Total.
this neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's crazy though that it actually works sometimes.
It does work.
Yeah.
Shannon just crafted a cool letter. We were working on a new template yesterday, and I like her opening line is, what was it? If this is your dream home and you'll never ever sell, throw this letter away. If not, continue reading. So it's a really cool kind of catchy line, I feel like, to kind of drag them in. Well, like, it is my dream home, but now I want to know what you're talking about, you know?
Yeah.
This page, I would say too, is your value and understanding the market. So of course, asking all those questions and consulting them and getting to know them is really important. But also your value is understanding the market. And every day we wake up, we look at our Metro list, we're looking at what's going on. So knowing that and knowing like, hey, this is what it looks like in the market if you're buying today. This is how we find comparables.
I
That's
thought
fine.
I stepped through on that one. Yeah. So, right, finding comparables, understanding the market. Something I do and a few of my agents on our team do is every morning I wake up, I set that filter to 1 day on market and I hit enter and I see what's new today.
Yeah.
So I can speak at a high level when we're at open houses, when I'm at a coffee shop and I'm anywhere, like, hey, did you hear about this house? Or have you seen this house? And it's great. I actually called a client this morning because one popped up. It had been on for like 4 months in the past, went off the market, just popped back up today. We're going to go see it tomorrow.
Nice.
Yeah. And this, like, I love too, like, so negotiations and making an offer, that's the process they need you on, and why having an agent is so important that understands it. Yeah. So just don't forget about this part, I would say.
So as a buyer who maybe hasn't bought a house or isn't familiar with the current environment, why can't I just write an offer with the listing agent? Like, I went to an open house this weekend and I like the house. Why can't I use them to write the offer?
Yeah, I love equating that, just like Josh kind of brought up earlier about that job or that contract. And it's the same, right? I mean, that agent has a fiduciary responsibility to do what is in the best interest of that selling client, right? Like, their job is not to get you the best deal on the property. The job is not to make sure you know everything about this property. This job is not to make sure you do the home inspections. Like, would you ever go in to a court case and say, hey, you know what, Mr. Prosecutor, like, I would love you to represent me as well, right? Can you please represent me? When it's their job to kind of put you away, right? Or it's their job to kind of do what is best for their client. So you want someone who is in your corner, who is there to do what is best for your interest and make sure that they're protecting you.
Thank you.
This is where we talk about teams. This is where I think is really important. We jumped in earlier, like, single agents have a team, right? So we talk, I think this is a really important one to do. And like, there's a study to support this too. So in any real estate transactions, there's approximately 180 tasks that have to be done, right? And we can show that in California very, very easily by our just ridiculous stack of contracts, right? Like, all of this has to be done. All of these
Hundreds of
have to be
pages.
taught. And then Radius still bothers you for weeks on end to get all your extra paperwork in.
Yes.
That might just be me. But right, like, there's 180 tasks that have to be done, right? So we dive into that and you say, you know what? I'm your lead agent. I'm going to be here to negotiate your contracts, to review every offer, to make sure you're getting to the houses you want to see. But, you know, I'm also running this business. We have a lot going on. So I have my team members like Shannon here and like Blake and Josh. And I have these team members that are here to support me because I want to make sure that you never miss an opportunity to see a home because I wasn't available. So although I might not be able to show you every house, you're not going to miss out on a property because of me, because we have this great team behind us to support you, right? And you have that even if you're a single agent, with showing partners and with just relationships you've built. Like, go to masterminds, build these relationships. So if you can't show a house, you have that partner reach out to, hey, can you please show this house to me? Sometimes they just want $20, $50 or whatever. Hopefully you can build that relationship to where, right, you just have that friend you can call and show. Up here in Northern California, we are available for y'all. If you ever need someone to show or help you out, like, we will do it. I mean, that's something we've really pride ourselves on our team, is like, we want to help agents just grow, right? That's something that's very important to us, right? So I'm your lead agent. And I think it's very important because a lot of buyers, like, so you're just going to walk away after this? Like, no, like, I'm going to be here. I'm going to negotiate. We're going to check in with you. Like, we're going to have a schedule. However, we're going to have these other people in the background, and then we can dive into them, right? So we have our client concierge, right? For that, that's our transaction coordinator. They're going to be emailing you quite a bit. You'll see some emails coming from Mark and even some from Shannon, and that's just to make sure all of our paperwork is getting done. We have our showing assistants, which I talked about a little bit, and they're there to make sure you don't miss any opportunities. We have our lender, who's going to be checking in with you from time to time. We meet regularly with our lenders, so I'll be up to date on everything. So if I'm in that conversation, I'll still have that knowledge, and we can check in if you have any questions. Then we talk about our home inspector, we talk about our title team, we talk about our home warranties and everything in between, right? So really prop up that you have a team. Jen?
Well, yep. And then everyone has their area of expertise.
Yep.
They're dedicated to what they do really well, and that's why it is a, you know, almost seamless we make it as seamless as possible because everyone's dedicated to their talent and what they're providing.
This is a buyer experience overview. Kind of intentionally make it look a little complicated. Like, here's everything you got to do to kind of step through it. Like, right. So this is where you really, again, get to jump into your value, right? Like, this is visually everything that has to happen in that timeline that's going to happen in, but we're going to guide you through all of it, right? This is not a map that you're going to have to tackle on your own. Like, we're going to be here every step of the way. We're going to be checking in regularly, and we're going to go over it all with you, right? Cost of buying a home is where we talked about, where maybe I didn't explain it well enough to where they showed up with cash, right? But so we have our earnest money that we talk about and what that looks like. We have our home inspection and cost and what that looks like. We have our appraisal and talk with your lending partner about that. Some lenders wrap it into the loan. Some lenders I found recently are charging people for that appraisal up front now, just in case the loan doesn't close, right? They get that cost covered. So check with your lender on that and make sure you're speaking about these up front. The worst thing is to kind of get through this whole presentation and then 3 weeks, 4 weeks down the line, get into contract and that loan officer hits them with $450. Like, wait a minute, you didn't tell me about this, right? So talk about that up front. Yeah. I briefly jump into down payment and what they look like and how you can buy from anything from zero down to, you know, whatever you want down. But we're going to talk about that more when we connect you with that lender. And then buyer's agent compensation, right? So here's where we talk a little bit about what that looks like. Still not a commission, right? But like, you know, this is how I get paid. Historically, we have been able to negotiate that the seller covers our cost 100% of the time. For here, interesting enough, I mean, I do a lot of investors as well. I actually have my investors pay compensation a lot of the time for tax benefits, right? So if we're going to offer, we just did one yesterday where we're going to offer $250 on the house. We actually offered $245 on the house, but then wrote that we're going to cover, buyer will cover commission, buyer will cover all the fees and everything. So it's a wash, but now my buyer gets to write off that extra $5,000 on their taxes because it's the real estate commission. So, right, there's strategies around it as well if you're working with investors, but typically, right, if I'm working with that first-time home buyer, we have 100% of the time been able to negotiate it to be covered by the seller. I'm guessing that might be Shannon's put together a really cool presentation for us at the end of the month. We're going to do a state of the market is what she calls it. We actually have a mortgage bank president coming, but an appraiser coming. That's what we're really going to have that appraiser talk about. Like, what have you seen in California in the last year? And has there really been any changes in price points, or have you seen compensation not being covered in this last year, right? And he hasn't. I mean, to Josh's point, nothing has changed in California when it comes to what's happening. It's just talked about more, and I think even talked about much clearer now to where people like totally understand it. Closing day, we're going to review our documents. So we talk about, you know, what's that's going to look like. We're going to review documents. We're going to have that closing appointment where you do your signing. You're going to wire your funds. You're going to sign documents, recording, and congratulations. On the signing documents, always like to dive in. Like, one of us will be there, right? The lender will be there. I'll be there. Someone will be there with you. If we're not there because you're signing remotely or whatever, if you ever need to stop that notary to ask a question and call me, don't feel bad. That's their job. They're being paid to be there. Stop them, pick up the phone, call me, and we'll go over that document together before you sign, right? But don't feel like you're there alone. But you're right, there is times where we just can't be with that buyer at closing day. But typically we're there because we're delivering cookies. And I love what Shannon said. I don't know if you guys caught on to that. Like, cookies delivered to the workplace, great touch, right? Because now they have to tell everybody why they got cookies. Josh, it's our loyalty agreement that we talked about. So this is some I love. We used to have a little signing place down there. Now we have these check boxes, right? Understand and discuss the buyer agency relationship, check, and then, hey, sign that buyer agreement as well, check. And we have check marks there. So we're not having them sign twice anymore, but really just dives into, like, here's what I promise to you, right? I promise to find you the best financing programs. I promise that I will automatically email you your property matches and I'll get you set up on that search. I promise that I'm going to arrange private showings for you and that you don't have to go to open houses if you don't want to. We can take that time and then look at these homes privately so you don't have to be burdened by those people kind of watching you look at their house, right? We dive into, we're going to make sure this is an enjoyable experience and we're going to look at that everything. And we just really dive into, here's what I promise. And then on the other side, hey, you know, all I'm asking is 4 things from you. That's it, right? Like, you're going to seek pre-approval. You're going to connect with this lender and you're going to give them kind of what they need, because I need that to really go to bat for you and get you the best deal, right? I have to be able to show them that you're qualified to get this, right? You're going to notify me of any properties that maybe you find that someone told you about or whatever, and I'm going to help you negotiate, right? So if your neighbor says, hey, this house down the road is going to go on the market soon, like reach out to me. And I have some great tools to reach out to those people, find those phone numbers, make those phone calls for you so you don't have to, right? That's my job. You're going to have a member of our team get your offer in your home ready to go. We're going to go through that. And then we're going to acknowledge that the broker is what we're doing in that compensation, Boom.
I like that it's divided up between what you guys are going to do and what they should do in return.
Yep. And then our promise to you, Shannon, what's our promise?
That you're gonna have an awesome Disneyland experience through this, and you're gonna feel amazing as a homeowner. So homeownership doesn't end with keys for us. So yeah, our promise is that we're gonna deliver everything that we say we're gonna do and some, and you're gonna be a homeowner after all of this.
Yeah. So right.
We'll find you at the right place at the right time.
We know that you will be satisfied with our service, and if you are not, we will make it right or we will cancel the contract. We stand behind the ability to find you the right home in the right place. Something really cool that I learned because we've expanded into Florida. So real estate, right? I mean, I'm confident in terms of learning a market and diving into the numbers and learning a market. But in Florida, they charge, like in the contract, there's $1,000 cancellation fee. If someone cancels a contract on you, right? And that's something we want to change out there with our promise. Like, look, if you're not happy with us, if it's not right, like we're not going to charge you a cancellation fee, right? Like we're just going to tear up this contract and we're going to wish you the best of luck because we didn't fulfill that promise to you, right? But what I ask in return is if you're feeling that way, you're feeling frustrated, like reach out to me, reach out to our team, and let's see if we can work it out. Because maybe it's just a misunderstanding, or maybe we're not communicating enough to you. But I really want to learn the best way to communicate with you, right?
Very cool.
That's it, Jess. So then we have a note page at the end. It's something we leave with our client for them to kind of take their notes on. It's a well put together kind of book. Spent a lot of time like picking out the right paper, right? Like we probably spent too much time, right? Making sure it kind of has that experience and that feel. But this is something now we use across the country, and it is something that is just can be used by anybody too, right? I mean, it's branded to us, but really the information in there, I think anybody can take and just boom, present it, and this is how you present it, right?
Yep.
I have a question. So you just kind of touched, so I noticed you guys are a place team, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We've talked to Place in the past. It's been, something we haven't committed to, but we have talked to them. Is this kind of like the support that they supply too? Like, did they provide this general skeleton with you guys? Okay. That's really valuable. I think that's great. I was curious. I noticed it had Place branding all over it. So that's
Yep. So not only provided, but I mean, a whole intranet behind us. Like there is a whole web page dedicated to this that has, 25 different scripts on it. It has hour-long videos of other people presenting it to each other and role playing. Like there is this one that is branded with notes and everything ready to go. And then in terms of printing and everything too, they're providing it. We're buying it in bulk as 350 teams across this country. Yeah. So pricing on it is much better than you as one team buying it, for 50 at a time, right? Because it just have massive amounts of them. The other really cool thing about that platform is I know that, so we have our own team in Florida that we now have stood up. However, right, if I'm referring a deal to Wisconsin, I'm referring it to someone in my Place Partner world, they're doing this exact same presentation, right? So if I did a deal with you already, they're going to go sit down with this person, it's going to feel identical, right? And it's people I actually know and trust, because just like we're doing here with Radius, and I love that Jess has put these together, we're on 2 to 3 Zooms a week with our Place partners, right? So we're getting to know each other pretty regularly. And then we're doing some really cool events together as well. So we're actually meeting these people, knowing these people. So when I send a referral out, I'm not just on Facebook, hey, who does real estate here, right? It's actually someone I know, love, and trust, right? And that's what I love about these rooms that Jess is putting together too, trying to bring us together as the Radius community.
Yeah, I like it. I actually did a Place mastermind. We have a team in Dallas too. So I traveled out to Dallas, and they were having an in-person mastermind there, and people from all over the country. So it was really cool. The collaboration and just like sharing ideas. So I like, Jess, that you guys are doing this within Radius. I think it's awesome.
Did you do Adelina's mastermind? Which one did you go to?
I think her name was Adeline. That sounds, It sounds right. Yeah.
Adelina does some cool stuff in Texas.
Yeah, it was pretty neat.
Is there anything that you guys do, Josh and Michelle, and your guys' buyer consults that wasn't covered on this one?
Josh or Hannah, do you guys want to touch on anything? And everyone kind of puts their own spin on it, so I'll let them answer. You're muted. Oh, he left us. Oh no, he's up.
I'm here. I don't know. I'm going to add stuff to my buyer consultation now.
Yeah.
Thanks for this. So, thank you.
Yeah, I do kind of like how you said, Michelle, adding your own twist or a different order to how you explain it. And of course, sometimes depending on the client, the type of conversation leads you astray from your routine of like the packet or the conversation, but that's okay because like you said at the beginning, where if you spend the whole time talking about them on that first slide, that first page in your slideshow, that's the most important anyway, because that shows that they trust you. You're learning to trust them and really getting to know who they are as a person and how you can help. And so, yeah, you just have to I think you have to know your main points, but also be fluid in the conversation because it will change.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
There's a couple things that I picked up that I really like. One, I like asking for 4% on the BRBCA and then negotiating down, especially to the seller, because they're like, whoa. And then to get it to where you really want it to be 2.5 or 3%. Yeah. I think that's brilliant. I also like calling your TC your client concierge.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
And they're checking in regularly. So RTC, they're sending emails on our behalf. They're sending contracts. They're sending that, right? They're checking in on you, right? And that stuff, that's the most important job in that transaction, is that transaction coordinator, right? After we get you into contract, like that transaction coordinator is the most important job, because if this doesn't happen, the house doesn't close, you don't get paid, right? I mean, so many things,
Yeah, and behind the curtain, just so you guys know, I come off as like that client concierge. The DocuSigns all come from me. And then we have our transaction manager who introduces himself as well. But I'm able to pick up that phone and have that conversation and check in with the client's experience, so they feel held the whole time that this behind the curtain team is doing it. So it's easy enough to just have someone, doing that process, or combining that TC as the client concierge.
Yeah, Josh, that sounds kind of like what Vanessa was in our world. Yeah.
What I love about what Hannah said too, right? Like, if you spend an hour on that first page, you build rapport. You build something that most agents aren't doing. Most agents are like, let me show you a house. Let's write an offer. Like, most agents are still treating this world like 2020. Like, let's go. Like, you're gonna buy a house, and then you're out of my life, right? We have found we have an agent right now. Someone's been in their life for 18 months, and they're just got approved, and they're finally looking at houses, right? Like, you got to build rapport, and especially in this market. And you should have been doing it anyways, right? Because how many people did we close in 2020 that are not our referral partners, that are not sending us deals, right? Because they were just kind of going through as quick as we could, and we're not getting that return anymore. Where if you build that rapport and you make them part of your life, they're going to be your referral partner. Something I love to do after this presentation too, and I've been very successful in the recent weeks, is, hey, I just kind of went over everything we have to offer. If it's something you like, obviously I would love to represent you, but would you leave me a Google review real quick? And just really, and I've been getting Google reviews after that presentation.
Yeah, because some buyers aren't ready to do it. And then, as we know, the BRBC, this is interesting. So we asked earlier what we put in our CRM. We put the expiration date of our agreement. So even if they're a year from now, there's no reason why you can't sign, because you know what? Even though we have like a 2-year path or a 1-year path, I'm going to connect you with the lender. You're probably going to open houses. I know I still do, right? And I know that's kind of finding areas, and they're fun to do. I want to make sure if any questions come up from that, they come to me, so you're not bogged down and end up in someone else's CRM, which is where we call and we put your information. By the way, every 3 months we have to re-sign it, but I have it automated. So every 3 months you're going to get it. It's our loyalty together. So that's just a new thing. That's new ground right now, that they passed a law in California, right? January 1st it hit, or 7th or something, that it's 3 months. So every 3 months, that's the longest we can have it. So make sure you bring that up and that's setting your promise and what it looks like. And guess what? That doesn't mean that you sign it today, but you are going to go to open houses because it's a natural human thing to do.
It's fun.
So this will protect you from being prey of other agents. I'll throw in jokes like that for sure. So you're not the victim when you walk in the open house.
Well, I like to send when I have a buyer consultation, I give them, no matter when they're looking, a stack of my cards, and I'm just like, but I like this. I tell them too. I'm like, when you go to an open house, they're gonna try to steal you from me.
Yes, yeah. Have fun with it. Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
yeah, so that's kind of where I go with that. But I like, because I haven't been having people sign, because if they're like, I'm looking for like in a year, I'm like, okay, we'll get this going in about like, I'll touch base with you every 3 months, and then when we're ready to look, I'll have you sign it. But I like this signing it.
Oh my gosh, I lost one to an open house.
Timelines change.
Yeah,
Timelines change. You never know. You go to the open house and it's been on the market for 90 days, and that agent said we're going to give $30,000 credit towards closing, and we can make these interest rates work. Right, all of a sudden, like, oh well, shoot, if it works, like, let's go. Right, like, so timelines change. Lifestyle change. I mean, hopefully you're checking with your database, regularly to maybe where you catch them. But it doesn't matter, right? I mean, how many people, especially, right, you guys are in San Diego. I grew up down there. I think every fourth person is a realtor down in San Diego, right? How many realtors are your clients in front of at school drop-off, at the coffee shop, at wherever, right? I mean, like, they're everywhere. It's the same up here. We have 4,800 agents in our little tiny metropolitan area, right? Everybody's an agent. I'm one of 5 in my kid's second grade class, it is funny to go to I love going to those parties because, like, I wear my hoodie and I just exist in the background, and all the other 4 are like, oh, have you done this? Like, they are selling themselves hard, right? Like, I just make it known that we're here to help and support you, but we're not going to be pushy. Just come and hang out,
Well, this was fun. Thanks.
Yeah.
I love these rooms. I'm excited. I mean, I love that you're making them a regular thing too. I know I've said it a few times, but I really appreciate these rooms. And obviously the opportunity. I mean, I'll talk to you anytime. So, I mean, we love the opportunity to get on here and teach something that Shannon and I are incredibly passionate about. We're not doing anything that's a secret. Like, we will give away every freaking thing we do. We'll give you our playbooks. We'll give you our time. We'll give you free coaching. Right? I mean, like, we want to make better realtors.
Kindred and Roots are like, you guys are very similar in how you operate, and we need to get you guys together more often.
Yeah, no, we
do next week.
We want to make better realtors.
Should we do investing in real estate next week? Maybe that'd be kind of fun.
I love it. We got a couple good deals going right now. We that's kind of our expansion to Florida was because we wanted to buy there. So we have a couple flips going in Florida. We're diving into a mobile home park in Florida, perhaps.
Oh, dang.
And then we're doing some stuff here in California as well. Actually, so bought our first hotel and RV park in California recently. And we got an opportunity to go up and look next week at a township. They're selling the whole town.
What? How does that work? That's crazy.
So really cool. Like, I want the listing more than anything. It's a really cool town. I mean, for the wrong reasons, but it's this little town like up in Northern California. They had a quadruple homicide back in the 80s that has still not been solved. Like, I already have open house plans for like murder mystery night and everything. Like, I'm so excited for this.
Where in Northern California is it?
Like,
I want to go.
Up in Shasta. Is that Shasta?
It's Plumas County is what it is. It's a little town of Quincy, and then it's right outside of Quincy is this town.
Okay.
But it's funny. We got the call the other day, and the guy told us the name of the town, and I looked it up. Like, I searched it real quick. The first thing that popped up, unsolved quadruple homicide in cabin 28. And I went, oh.
It still gets brought up this
Like,
day.
there was every first 2 pages of Google was about the murder, not about the town.
They're gonna make a movie about this in 10 years.
Our goal this year is to have the longest open house held. Maybe we'll have it there.
Yeah, we're gonna do.
In the middle of nowhere.
we're gonna run a like 48-hour open house. Like,
I mean, make it a Halloween attraction at that point.
yeah, right. So I
Listen in the fall. I like it.
I mean, people love that stuff, right? That's something that is my goal. Like, I want to make it on the Zillow Gone Wild, right? Like, that's what I want to make it on. I've been writing some creative descriptions recently. My one I wrote yesterday is for a listing in Florida. I wrote it, and I worked in there that this house is more versatile than a pair of yoga pants on Thanksgiving. That's in our description.
That's good.
So that's our goal. Zillow Gone Wild by the end of the year.
It's a good goal.
Guys, I really appreciate your time. We spend some time down in San Diego. We're actually down there in April, so would love to kind of connect when I'm down there. From Mission Beach, sold Mission Beach when I came up here, but bought a small condo in Rancho Penasquito.
Oh, nice.
So we still get down there, not as often as I would like, but we're down there a few times in Penasquito hanging out.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. We'd love to have you, stop by and we can do some masterminding or grab lunch, and sounds good.
Yeah, love it.
But we'll probably see you next. So how often are we doing these monthly?
I like this Friday thing. Friday at 9:30 seems to be working pretty well.
Weekly or monthly?
Weekly.
Every
Weekly,
Friday.
okay. Cool. Let's do
Yeah.
it.
Love that.
All
Every
right.
Friday, when-
Fridays is like I'm not gonna say my easy day, my easier day.
More chill, yeah.
would highly encourage people to invite their friends, Radius or not, right, Jess? I mean, let's get
Yeah,
people in this room.
whoever.
Let's get people to see the value of what Radius is bringing to us all. We partner with Radius. Jess, what I think we're almost at a year now. Finally,
Yeah.
I think there was a year of courting before, so I think we're at 2 years. But yeah, no, we are very happy we made this jump. I mean, the technology platform and the changes that you guys are rolling out in the next couple of weeks are really cool. I got on a Zoom yesterday with some people there. So cool, excited about your changes of what you're rolling out for us agents. But I love these rooms, right? And I think we're a very big open community. Would love to see people that aren't even from our world kind of jumping in. Let's grow this room. Let's get 100 people in here.
Let's do it.
All right. Awesome, guys.
All right,
Well,
guys.
thank you.
Have a great
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Talk to you later.
Bye.